in a good position. So again, welcome everyone. So delighted to share in some quality time tonight. Thank you for being here. My name is Jel Cortez and I am with L.E.A.D Filipino, and we are the host organization for tonight's holiday special, which is a Pan de Sal bake show, which we are bringing to you live from San Jose, California. And if I can ask Camille, because we have like 10 of them, but the real Camille on the line, if you want to get those cameras activated, we are ready for showtime. And I really just have the honor of introducing our special guest tonight, everyone. My own sister, Chef Kristen Dominguez, is a chef who has worked in the culinary industry for over 10 years in both corporate kitchens and small businesses. Her specialties include vegan and vegetarian cuisine, baking, and Asian cuisine with a focus on Filipino cuisine. She is currently based in the San Francisco Bay Area and is a regular feature with global brands like the Filipino Kitchen and Siomano, which is based out of the Philippines. It is very special to host my own sister tonight, and she will be walking us through in some live demos. We actually have a live audience too, so if you hear some ambient sound, just tell them to shut up. Just kidding. Thank you again, and I will now pass it over to my sister. Give it up for Chef Kristen Dominguez.
Thank you. Oh, I'm getting an echo. 1 second. Here. Me? Thumbs up. Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight for the Pan de Sal demo, which was so graciously hosted by L.E.A.D Filipino. They actually invited me to their holiday party, which is really, really sweet of them. Hi, guys. And thank you so much for joining me tonight to learn how to make Pan de Sal. If you're a fan of Filipino cuisine, you definitely know what Pan de Sal is. You've been to the Philippines, they serve it out of like trucks, bakeries, all sorts of things like that. And it's really one of our staple breads. Really, if you go to any Filipino restaurant or ask any of your Filipino friends, this is probably going to be one of the first things that they mention. And, oh, were you good? Okay, cool. All right. I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time just because we will have any Q&As. If you guys are running into any issues or anything like that, I'd like to be able to answer questions as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and I'd be more than happy to answer them. We do have a moderator on hand. All right, so we will get started. So to begin with Pan de Sal, we normally get started with our wet ingredients. But before that, we will be getting started with our leavening agent, or what makes it fluffy, makes it rise, makes it bread. So for that, you will be needing 1 tablespoon of yeast or 1 packet of active dry yeast. You'll also be needing 1 tablespoon of sugar. So this is just to feed the yeast, just because if you're not familiar, yeast is actually alive. It makes bread rise. And you're also going to need 1/2 cup of warm water to activate. So for time purposes, I've actually started my activation process. So here, as you can see, my yeast is actually getting pretty high already. It started down here with my 1/2 cup of water, but with that activation, it's actually risen almost to 2 cups of yeast. And this is definitely what you're looking for. You want to see that foam layer at the top here. If you see the nice little foamy cap, I'm trying to show it the best I can. If you see that, your yeast is properly activated. So to that, you're actually going to take a bowl, specifically a bowl that's big enough to knead in. Just because you can turn this out onto a floured surface during the kneading portion, but I just prefer to do things in a bowl. So you're going to take your yeast, sugar, and water mixture. You're going to add that in. And then we're also going to take 1/2 cup of warmed milk. You can use plant-based milks as well. I'm using just regular cow's milk, but plant-based milks work as well, just as long as it's warmed. So ideal temperature would be 110 degrees or whatever is just comfortable to place your finger in. I normally call it skin temperature. So we're going to add that in as well. And we are also going to take 1 egg. And if you are plant-based, you cannot eat animal products. You absolutely can use flaxseed, ground flaxseed as well. So with ground flaxseed, you would just have to liquefy it. Liquefy it in 3 tablespoons of water. So 1 tablespoon of flaxseed for 3 tablespoons of water. That's the route that you're choosing to go. I'm going to add my egg. And just 1 moment, please, while I wash my hands really quick. Okay, thank you so much for waiting. And last of all, we are going to add sugar. Now, sugar is actually qualified as a wet ingredient. The reason why I am actually not 100% sure, but we will add that as well. And we are going to whisk it. So whisk just to make sure everything's combined. If you're using a regular chicken egg or whatever, you just want to make sure that the yolk's broken up. You want to make sure that like it looks homogeneous, anything like that. But afterwards, I'm trying to find the right camera. So you want the mixture to look like this. So there may be a little bit of bubbles at the top from not only from whisking and so there may be a little bit of bubbles. So not only from the whisking, but also from our yeast, which is activated. So we normally get this mixed first, and then we're going to add our dry ingredients. So, so for dry ingredients, well, I should back up a little bit. So we do the wet ingredients first, just because when we add our dry ingredients, we don't want any flour getting stuck to the bottom of the bowl. Just because when you're mixing and when you're kneading, there may be pockets of flour. But after that, after everything is mixed well, we have our flour, 3.5 cups of, I'm just using 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And generally you can use anything that can build gluten. So you can use whole wheat flour, you can use organic flours. I have not tested this recipe with any gluten-free flours or keto flours. So I can't really provide any testimony on how that will turn out, but absolutely you're welcome to experiment. I think as long as the yeast is activated, it should work well. But anyway, to your liquid mixture, we are just going to add the flour a little bit at a time. So I'd say you can probably go about 1 cup at a time. That's normally what I do. So add 1 cup, give it a little stir, add a little bit more. And you're just going to keep doing this until all of your flour is incorporated. So as we're adding our flour and mixing, does anybody have any questions so far about any of the steps in the process that we've gone through? If you do, you're welcome to unmute your mic and let me know.
Not seeing any questions in the chat.
Heard. Thank you. All right, let me just clean up a little bit. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to add about 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, I normally add the salt last, just because if you add it towards the beginning or even before the flour, you have a chance of killing the yeast. For some reason, yeast, salt, they don't like each other. They're not best friends. So I just add it at the end after everything's mixed. And we're going to mix this until it has a sort of, they call it a shaggy texture. And I'm going to try to find a really good example of that to show you, or try to get mine mixed to show you. So the best way I could describe a shaggy texture is So the liquid is all mixed in. It still is quite a bit floury, but there are like largish pieces like this. And with these largest pieces, that's completely okay because we do have one last step, but this is about what you are looking for. And once you're at the stage, if you have it on hand, as we discussed in the recipe, we're also going to be adding a 1/3 cup of melted butter. I know some recipes add the butter in with the yeast and the milk at the beginning. This is just my preference, just to add it at the end. I really don't have a reason why. But we're going to go ahead and add that in there. And we're just going to give it a mix. Just a really quick mix. And then we're actually going to move on to the kneading phase. So once the butter's fairly incorporated, kind of like this, like it's still, you'll see like lumps of flour still here, or I mean, flour's sprinkled throughout. This is where you actually get your hands in. So I'm just cleaning off the spatula really quick. We don't want to waste anything for all this bread goodness. So for kneading, if you're not too familiar with kneading, I can go over some techniques. If you do have a stand mixer, like a KitchenAid, or I forgot what that Target brand one was, but if you do have a stand mixer, you can absolutely use a stand mixer with a dough hook. So you're going to want to keep that on low if you're choosing to go that route. You're going to have the dough hook on. You're going to leave it on either low or 2, and you're going to let that go for about 15 minutes until the dough is smooth and elastic. But as for here, if you're kneading by hand, so I'm trying to show the best I can. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab, you're going to grab some dough, you're going to fold it on top, and you're going to press down. And then you're just going to kind of move in a circle, and you can move your bowl in a circle if it's easier for you, but grab the dough near the end, press down in the center. And if you're doing this by hand, just be ready for a workout. Make sure to switch arms, all that, because you're going to have to do this by hand for about 10 minutes. And thank you so much to Camille for lifting the cell phone. This is really sweet of her, and like I feel like I'm on Food Network without trashy Bobby Flay.
Food Network from Eastside San Jose. Can't no one do it better.
And after you've been kneading it for a while, you're going to notice that not too much dough will be sticking to the sides. But what we're doing here is we're forming gluten. So gluten is essentially the protein strands that gives dough its structure. Like if you cut into a bread roll or anything, it'll give it that. I'm trying the best way to think of like describing bread dough. It's so difficult. When you cut it open, we call it a crumb structure. That's what you'll see when you cut it open, and this process is essentially what does it. I'm actually really curious who's like doing this by hand and who's using like a stand mixer tonight. By hand, yes. Connie, yes. We are exercising forearms. Nicole, it's okay. Whatever you choose is the right decision.
I mean, judging by the looks of the force in this, it's looking like if you're going to use your hands, that takes some muscle.
Yes, definitely after this, if you are doing this by hand, please do some wrist stretches, like, because you will feel it. You'll feel it in your wrist, you'll feel it in your forearms tomorrow. But it's only been a few minutes of kneading and you can already tell it's starting to take shape. So the texture isn't as shaggy anymore. You'll notice it's starting to get actually a little bit smooth. So if you pinch it, you actually see there's like little strands in it. So this means gluten's forming and everything is going well. Ate, do you have any questions about any of this?
Me personally, no. I am just observing in admiration and astonishment. However, maybe we should take a question from the live audience.
We'll take questions from the live audience.
Live audience. Any questions? Oh. What was the question?
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that in just a second.
All right, we have a question from someone in the virtual room, from Nicole.
Yes, Nicole, how can I help you today?
Hey, virtual people. So we're looking at like the times of letting it sit and rest.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like always going to be the case? A full hour? Is it like we're trying to have a little proof drawer action going on? Speed that up.
So all those times are approximate just because it really does depend on, first of all, how warm the kitchen is in. Oh God, I forgot.
Hot.
Okay, yeah, it should, well, actually it might take a little bit faster considering if your yeast is fully activated. It may take anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes. I always just err on the side of an hour just because like if you are in a colder temperature, it will take that much longer. Or even maybe even 2 hours. So it really just depends on room temperature.
All right. Any other questions in the house? Sounds like the audience member had a question that was a few steps ahead of us. But anyone else?
Yeah, we're actually going to get to that next.
All right, cool. Going once, going twice. All right. Next.
Okay. So it hasn't quite been 10 minutes yet, but just because I am used to doing this a lot, my dough has actually gotten to just before the elastic stage. So, oops, it started to roll away, my bad. So right here, you'll see it has come together into a ball. And we are looking for like smooth, hopefully, like if there are little dents in it, I wouldn't worry too much about it. What we're looking for more is for it to be coming together. Can everyone still hear me? Okay. So after about 10 minutes, more or less, it should look like this. So you notice it's smooth. There still may be a few like, gosh, it sounds wrong if I call it stretch marks. That's so bad. There may be a few of these like little dimples in it. That's completely okay. And at this point, you want to cover it, but you don't want to like cut off oxygen to it. So normally what I will do is I have these like fancy I have these tea towels that I use specifically for baking. So what I'll do is I'll just cover it. And pretty much this just serves to make sure that nothing gets in it. But when you cover it, you're just gonna let it relax. This will give the gluten time to relax, and it'll also have the dough rise. So what you're looking for is for the dough to be doubled in size. If you are using plastic wrap, well, two things. If you are using plastic wrap, the best way I can recommend to see if the dough has actually risen is take a Sharpie and draw a circle where your dough is. And then, you know, at the end of like 2 hours or 45 minutes, you can see how big it's grown. And we're just looking, like I said, we're looking for it to double in size. And we're just gonna let this kind of chill for, like I mentioned before, it's anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. No crumble. But out of respect for everyone's time and thank you to TV Magic, we actually have some dough that has been resting for about an hour in my little container. So it's doubled in size. Everything's great, everything's fine. Don't look over here. So traditionally with Pan de Sal, you're gonna take it and you're gonna roll it into a log. But if you're not comfortable with that, if it's still in this circle phase, you're just going to cut it into 4. And you can use pretty much anything. I use this, it's called a dough scraper, it's metal. You can get them from Restaurant Depot, Sur La Table. I think they even have them at Target. Or you can use a butter knife. I would just be really careful about that. Like just make sure it doesn't slip. You can use a regular knife. Should I go over proper knife holding? Because that's like a huge thing of safety.
Yes, go over that. Go over that if you can.
Okay. Ate, do you have a knife?
Oh, don't look for anything in my drawers.
Okay, cool.
Like a
Find a hammer.
A
fly swatter.
You might find a hammer next to the spoon. You could possibly find a screwdriver in there. Well, what kind of knife are you looking for?
Okay, so when holding a knife, so normally if it was a chef's knife, it would be a lot bigger. And normally we hold it by the handle. And I know that's typical for pretty much everyone. I strongly advise against this. The only reason is because normally for most kitchen knives, it's not the tang, which is the metal bit that runs into the handle, it's not completely attached. And if you're trying to cut in a straight line, sometimes you're going to try to go straight, but your knife will go like 45 degrees, it might go 90 degrees, 180, we don't know. So when you're holding a knife, I absolutely recommend actually holding it an inch above where the handle ends. So this is where the handle ends. I actually recommend holding it right here. So if you're holding it up here, for one, it's a little bit safer just because you know where the knife will be going. 2, it'll guide a lot easier and it'll provide for more accurate cuts. And that is my little spiel on knives. Thank you for sitting through my TED Talk. But going back to our dough. I just cut the ball into 4 pieces, and each of the 4 pieces you're going to cut into 3. And this will give you 12 pieces in total. And what we're looking for is pieces that are essentially similar in size and weight. So if you see here, not quite similar, so you can just tear off bits and pieces until it feels even or somewhat even. And these ones don't need to be in perfect balls yet. That's actually our next step that we're going to cover. So after cutting all of those up, you will end up with like some fairly uneven pieces. They don't look like Pan de Sal yet. So this is where I get into, I call it rolling the dough. So to roll the dough, I'm gonna wait for Camille to hold the camera again, just because this is actually a technique thing. So thank you. Thank you. So when you're rolling dough, you're gonna make, sorry, Ate. So when you're rolling dough, you're gonna have your hand in like a C shape, like you're holding something like, I don't have a cup right now, but like if you're holding a cup like this, right? So you're gonna place the heel of your hand right here, flat against the surface, and you're going to keep that shape. So if you see here, you're going to have your hand flat like that, and you're going to move it in circles. So what this will do is it will shape the dough without knocking any air out of it, because our dough has just risen. We don't want to lose all that beautiful volume, just like day after a wash day. You don't want to lose all that beautiful volume in your hair. After that, it should come into a fairly easy circle like this. So just until you find a shape that you're satisfied with, it can go into a circle like this. And to answer a question from the live audience that they asked before about when's a good time to add fillings to the pan de sal, this is actually the phase that you want to add the fillings to. If you wanted to add the fillings to that, you can just take this little ball, you can flatten it, add your filling, seal it back up with a few pinches, and then move on to the next step from there. I'm just going to give the rest of these 11 little dough balls shaping. And while I'm doing this, does anybody have any questions? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow?
I don't see any questions in the chat, but I see a lot of pensive gazes. So I'm taking that as folks are focused.
Folks are focused.
Mm-hmm. Lots of rolling going on right now.
To our in-person audience, we do have pan de sal over here if you'd like to eat it. We have ube and pandan flavor. That is what I decided to go over, and that is what I completely forgot to go over, and I messed up. So if you are using ube or pandan extract, you add that during the liquids. So you'll add all of those during the liquids. I only recommend using 1 teaspoon just because that stuff is really, really strong. And the ube one will stain your hands. So just be careful not to get it on any clothes, any fingers, anything like that. I'm sorry for forgetting that. That's my apologies. And if your dough starts to get a little dry, you can actually flatten it down and kind of pinch it into a little ball. And then it should be a little bit easier to shape from there.
So how long would you say, and my apologies if you covered this earlier, how long would you say someone should prepare in terms of setting aside time to prepare and bake and serve pan de sal?
For me anyway, if I'm making this at home and it's not in a commercial kitchen, I would normally say set aside at least 3 to 4 hours, just because this accounts for rising time. It accounts for it accounts for rising time. It accounts for any like restarts. That's the best way I could describe it. It provides enough time for like restarts. Like say if your yeast doesn't activate, if like, I don't know what other things would be. Like if you didn't add like an ingredient, it'll allow for that time because this dough is actually pretty forgiving.
Do they sell like pan de sal molds where you can just pop out like a perfect ball? Because this is a lot of labor right now as I sit here and not do any of it, but watch. Are there any pan de sal molds for sale?
As I know right now, there are none. There are none, but if you do want to get the kneading process out of the way, not so much as shaping process out of the way, but the kneading process, I do know that they sell bread machines. So essentially what that'll do is that'll cut out all of your kneading, probably cut it in half by like cut your kneading time in half, I think almost perfectly. That's what they advertise. I've never used one, but I've heard they're actually pretty nifty. And since I am showing the base recipe, I just like to say like this is essentially a blank slate for whatever you want. You can use almost any flavor. You can make sweet, you can make savory. It's pretty much like whatever your imagination can do. So after this class is done, and if anybody is choosing to make the recipe, like I would love to see what flavors they all come up with.
What are some of the more interesting Pan de Sal flavors you've seen or tasted?
That I've tasted. I've had durian before. It was actually pretty good. I'm not usually a huge fan of durian, but the way that this bakery made it, it was actually a bakery out in Texas. It was really, really good. And as I mentioned before, you could even fill these as well. So I know that some people use it to make siopao, like the baked buns. I wouldn't recommend steaming this one though, but I've definitely seen people put like meat, savory fillings. You can put ube jam, all kinds of jams actually in there. And hold on, I'm gonna grab one tray. Okay. So once all your balls are rolled, we are going to actually put the breadcrumbs on it. So breadcrumbs are usually really essential. I would recommend if you're using any sweet fillings or any sweet flavorings, or even if you just want the classic plain one, just use plain unflavored breadcrumbs. You can find them pretty much at any grocery store. I think this is Progresso, or even panko, just as long as it's ground down to a fine enough consistency. Just make sure that it is unflavored. I mean, unless you do want the Italian seasoning one, that's completely your choice. But it's really simple to do the breadcrumbs. You just want to roll it around in it. Like give it a little breadcrumb back and it'll be all happy. Thank you, Camille. And it won't be super coated, as you can see. It won't be like super coated like a chicken parmesan or anything, but it'll just have like this light dusting on it. And I'm just going to put these on a tray that I have lined silicone sheet saver behind me. But I'm going to continue to work my pan de sal. And at this point, you actually have two options. If you are making your pan de sal and you want to make it the quote unquote traditional way, you can put it into a pan. So just like a regular rectangular cake pan, you can put it in there, and then a cake pan. You would actually want to have them close. And this will actually give it the tear apart consistency that we're so used to seeing with a lot of commercial pan de sal. I personally like having them a little bit further apart, just because one, the structure is a lot more stable, and two, if you're trying to like cut into it and make it into a sandwich, like one day, you don't have to worry about like once you cut your knife in, like the entire thing like folds into like half its size. But as I mentioned, I'm just going to continue it, and this is actually for rolling it into these balls. I actually put about an inch of spacing. These silicone sheet savers, they actually have markings on it, so that's really helpful for me as well. All right, and after that is done, you're going to want to set these aside. You're going to want to set these aside at least for another hour or so. You want to give these a second rise actually, just because if you threw these in at like as they are now, they're not going to rise up very much and the dough will actually be very dense. It'll be very dense, it'll be very tough and not make for really good bread. So we want to give these a second rise. So for these are just until they're a little bit bigger. They won't get too much bigger than they are now, but you'll probably see like a couple centimeters of difference. And I actually do have a demo portion. So this is Pan de Sal that's been resting for about an hour. So as you can see, they are quite a bit bigger. They were pretty much the same size as the ones that I just rolled, but they're fluffier as well. So if you actually give little pinches to the sides, it'll feel like little airy like pockets. And this is what we're looking for. And at this stage, this is actually ready to put into the oven. So into a preheated oven, heated to 375, you're going to want to put this in for about between 13 to 15 minutes, just until the tops are browned. And yeah, just until the tops are brown.
Oh, we have a question.
Yes.
My apologies if this was already addressed, but do you cover them for the second rise?
No, so that's actually a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. So for the second rise, you don't need to cover them. Just because they do have the protective layer of the breadcrumbs, there's really no risk of it drying out. Throw these in. Okay. And thank you for bearing with all of our Food Network magic today. But at the end of all your baking, your pan de sal should look like this. Ways to check doneness. So the top will usually always get golden brown like this. So you're just looking for a light brown. It may be a little bit lighter around the edges like this, and that's perfectly fine. But what you really want to check for is the bottom. So the bottom is a little bit more golden, it's a little bit more brown. So the bottom is actually the indicator of whether it will be done. So this is what you're looking for. I know with the ube, it's a little bit harder to see just because it will be purple. The pandan's usually okay, you can check with that, but usually with the plain and the pandan, it's easy to see. And do we have any more questions at the moment? That pretty much concludes the demo portion though. I know it went really fast and I know it's usually not enough time to cover like start to finish cooking, but if there's any questions like at any of the processes in between, like please let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. What rack should we put it in the oven? So in the oven, I would generally recommend putting it in the middle. So not too close to the top, anything towards the middle or the bottom should be okay, just because the top will have the tendency to broil it. Thank you so much for asking that. I appreciate that. Any other questions? And
All right, we have a hand
wait.
up, Connie.
I think I missed one question too, but we'll I'll go with Connie first.
So when we're resting it and covering up with the tea towel, do you recommend the tea towel be damp or just dry is fine?
Dry is fine. Yeah, dry tea towel is fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, hi mom. Yeah, you absolutely can
Hi,
use a
Kristen.
convection oven. That's actually what we're using right about now.
Oh, cool.
Mhm. And do we need to turn the pan halfway through baking time? I always do it out of habit, but I would recommend it like if you do. If you do find out that your pan de sal needs more time, or if you notice that it's not at the doneness that you want, you can flip it then. But I always recommend, thank you so much for bringing that up, to rotate the pan halfway through. Should the eggs be at room temperature? For the eggs, it is not too dependent for it to be at room temperature, just as long as the other ingredients are warm. Just because when you do whisk it with the sugar, when you are whisking it with the warm yeast and water, when you are whisking it with the warm milk, that's actually a way that it'll raise its temperature as well. These are great questions. Thank you so much, y'all. Like, these are really good questions, and like really good technical questions too. Do we have any others? Thanks. I appreciate it. Definitely, if anybody would like to look into not only indigenous, but a lot of pre-colonial Filipino knowledge, I do recommend, please check out the work by Manong Lane Wilkin. He is a Mambabatok based out of Las Vegas. Extremely, extremely talented man. Also check out the Katao Living School, which is the Instagram account run by his school and their apprentices. I definitely recommend everybody check that out. What's your favorite flavors or filling for pan de sal? Yeah, absolutely. We can send those. We can have the Instagram pages sent, I think. So going in order, what's my favorite flavors of pan de sal or filling? So my favorite flavor / filling, I actually like the plain one. I'm kind of boring. I like the plain one, but I like the plain one with ube halia, so the ube jam. That's probably my favorite one. Close second is one that I had where they filled it with asado. And that was really good because it was like a baked siopao. Bye. Sorry, just invited some people. Okay. Melted butter says 1/3 to half a cup. When would we need to use more? Great question. So if your dough is ever looking a little bit drier, that's when I would recommend using half a cup versus 1/3 of a cup. Because it is friends and humans that are making it, there can be some human error in measuring. So that would be the only instance. If you add the 1/3 of a cup and you realize like, oh, it's really, really like not starting to come together into like that elastic ball, then that's when I would say like, go ahead and use that half a cup. Just add it really, really slowly, those remaining few tablespoons at a time. Yeah, absolutely. You're very welcome. Can you double the recipe for 24? Absolutely. This recipe is actually very forgiving. You can double it, you can triple it. You can actually, to make the ube and pandan for tonight, I actually multiplied it by 4. So we ended up with 48. It was very, very easy to do. So you can absolutely do that. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm just going to rotate my pan de sal really quick. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so what's the general rule with working with extract? Hard time. Okay, yeah, no, that is an excellent question, Connie. So my general rule of working with extract, I mean, are you talking about extract? Just because I need a little bit more clarification, Connie, so you can unmute your mic. Are you talking about extract as a whole, or are you talking about just ube extract?
Just ube extract, because I feel like I've been like, I would essentially use like a tablespoon of stuff for other things to try and get kind of like more of the flavor to come out, and it hasn't like done that. Like I just get like the color. And I know we kind of covered this also in the suyomao thing, but I don't remember what you mentioned about the extract.
Yeah, so thank you so much for bringing that up. So ube extract, it's not exactly just ube flavoring. Like you mentioned, so I did go over this. I went over this in the street foods class I did teach for Suyomano, which is an online platform. So ube flavoring as we know it, it's not exactly ube by itself. If you've ever had just like steamed ube, you'll notice it's very bland, almost like taro. So what we do know as ube, it's actually a mix of ube, coconut, and pandan. So it's all three of those. So it's not, if you do want to use a little bit more to get that ube flavor, you can increase it to 1.5. The only thing that I would say is if you are kneading this by hand, just to watch the staining on your hands. But usually 1.5, well, I should back up. So it also depends on the brand that you're using. I use the Butterfly brand, and that's usually very, very thick. It's almost like a syrupy consistency. I think I actually have some. If you can give me just a second, I can go pull that up. Yeah, so I have this one. It's ube flavoring. So this one actually, it's more of a it's like, it's got a very syrupy consistency to it. So this one actually only required the 1 teaspoon, but I know that if you do use the McCormick's, I believe McCormick's is the other one. The McCormick's is probably a little bit thinner, so you're going to want to have to add 1.5. I hope that answered your question. Sorry, I went off on a lot of tangents. I apologize. Nicole, any recommendations for if we forgot to add the butter until after we had a mostly formed dough? It doesn't seem to be incorporating very well. Okay, no worries. Actually, there is a way to fix it. So you, first question, are you kneading by hand or are you kneading on a stand mixer?
Mixer.
Mixer? Okay, cool. This actually makes it a lot easier. So add like a tablespoon of water before, and add the butter very, very slowly. So keep it on that low mixing speed, and then add the tablespoon of water. This will activate some of the starch in the flour, and then add the butter in a very, very slow stream. Or if you want, you can also go like a tablespoon at a time just to see.
Okay.
But yeah, it's usually not a big deal.
But I'll try.
Yeah, if anything, it just takes time. Like it's just one of those things that'll take time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all great questions. Thank you so much, everyone. Like, these are really good technical questions.
So I want to just give a shout out when folks' pan de sal is done, finished, and you're ready to take a bite. Please do, if you're comfortable, feel free to take a photo with your pan de sal and tag at @lead_Filipino so we can add you to our story. We want to keep this moment alive and see what your finished product looks like. So we're eager to see your photos.
Oh, thanks, Mom.
You're welcome.
Yes, I do want to see everyone's pan de sal. Like, I would love to see everybody's. Oh yeah, we also have bags if anybody wants to take any home, because there's going to be a lot. I'm excited to see all these selfies.
What's a
I can't
cute
wait.
hashtag like? I don't know. Nothing's coming to me right now.
Does
They
our
would-
live audience have cute hashtags for
Yeah,
Pan de
ask
Sal?
them. Ask them for something.
Oh, do I know if this is the base for señorita bread? I actually don't, but I think it would be a great thing to experiment with. I've actually never tried it with for señorita bread, but I think it would actually work well because pan de sal in itself, it's an enriched dough. So enriched meaning that it has fats added to it, which our case is butter. So I think it would work pretty well for that. I would definitely recommend experimenting with that. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nicole. You're amazing. Thank you.
All right, we got roll that, we got pan de sal, we got run that bread, and hashtag Kristen fan club.
Oh wait, I want to ask the live audience if they've eaten any. How is it? Aw.
Was that like a collective, like, were there some belly rubs in there too? Some burps while they were at it?
I don't know. Connie, I would absolutely fight Bobby Flay. We got bags. We got Costco bags. I don't know if I'd win though. He cheats. Hang on, I'm gonna pull out one batch of pan de sal.
I'm so happy that my oven works.
Am I allowed to out you about the oven?
You can spare all the major incriminating details, but sure.
So we're actually, ooh, pan de replay. I like that. That's so good.
Damn, that should have been our event name. It should have been Welcome to Pan de Replay. Damn it.
That is brilliant. I love that. You should trademark that. Wait, what was the question? I completely forgot. Wait, I need to scroll back up. I swear. I don't know if I missed a question. I lost my train of thought.
Do we want to have a dancing contest while we wait? Or does anyone want to do some karaoke on the line? There are prizes involved in this. A bag of pan de sal. That's what you get.
But everyone gets that.
Oh, you get more.
There's a lot.
You get some Jollibee.
You get a peach mango pie.
You get a carton of coconut milk.
Rude. I still can't get over pan de replay. That is like the best thing I've heard. That's the best thing I've heard. I love it so much. That's amazing. I'm just gonna check on my oven really quick. Oh yeah, so that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna out my ate. So she actually just moved into this new apartment not too long ago, and she's never used her oven until I turned it on.
Wow. Oh my God.
So we know it.
She goes, have you ever turned this on? And I was like, why? And she's like, it's emitting the new electronic appliance smell. And I was like, I didn't know those existed.
But we know it works. Nothing flew up, nothing exploded, which is always, a good time. And we we have a finished batch.
Wow, that looks so great.
Crazy. What the heck?
Yum.
See,
Whoa.
the bottoms are brown, so that's what we're looking for.
Oh,
And you got that yummy, 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 yummy.
Yeah. Wait, was there anything else on our schedule for this demo?
Nothing over here, but I think one last call for folks that have questions for Chef Kristen.
Yeah, any kind of question too. Like, I don't mind. Let me know your questions, or even like if it's not just about baking, if you want to like know about me as a person, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions.
Well, I'd love to do an interview then.
Oh,
A lightning round interview. Keep you on your toes.
oh, sounds fun.
All right, here goes.
All right.
Favorite smartphone app?
Favorite smartphone app? TikTok.
Book that you're currently reading?
Book that I'm currently reading is House of Salt and Sorrows. It's like a teen fantasy angsty book. Oh wait, hold on, I have a question. Did I go to cooking school? Yes, I actually did. I went to the Art Institute of California in Sunnyvale for 2 years after I went to De Anza.
Building on that question, what were some of the major influences for your pursuit of the culinary arts? And then followed up by, can you break it apart and add butter?
To like the fresh pan de sal, or to like fresh pan de sal, or like ready baked fresh? Yeah, absolutely. It's usually good to go out of the oven. I normally recommend for people to eat pan de sal hot, just because that's the best. And melted butter. Sometimes when I'm feeling bougie, I like adding brie and jam. Okay, sorry, Atha, what was your question?
Yeah, what influenced you to pursue the culinary arts?
Oh gosh, my answer is so bad. And absolutely agree. Served out of a brown paper bag is the best way to eat pan de sal. And we do have paper bags here. So I actually went to culinary school because I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. I went to De Anza, which is a local community college, for 2 years. And on a whim, I went to the Art Institute just because I wanted to see what it was about. I fell in love with their culinary program. And I actually ended up graduating early from there. As for getting into Filipino cuisine, it was something that culturally I grew up with it so much that it didn't register to me that it was something that I could learn. And unfortunately, there isn't necessarily a way to learn how to cook Filipino food. I mean, unless you're in the kitchen with your Lola and Lolo, watching them cook. So it actually took a lot of research. I really do credit a lot of my learning of Filipino cuisine to my, I want to say associate, but she's actually like one of my best friends, Natalia Rojas, who runs Filipino Kitchen. She actually reignited that love for me, gave me pointed me in the direction of a lot of different food writing, particularly Doreen Fernandez, who does amazing essays on Philippine cuisine. And that's definitely been my biggest inspiration. So going back to the chat, Nicole picked up Eden cheese. Yes, I actually wanted to pick up some queso de bola, but I forgot to go to the Filipino market before I came here. Connie, what is your process for researching recipes? It's actually like a two-part thing. So first of all, like when I am researching recipes, it is like first like researching the dish, like what dish do I want to do? And what I do a lot of times is I compare different recipes. So I'll compare like how I grew up knowing the dish, and I'll probably go check out some food blogs, see how they do the dish. I'll actually watch a lot of YouTube videos. That consists a lot of time. Watching like how street vendors make the dish, watching how like different professionals make the dish. And then I actually go into cooking it myself. First cooking it the way that I knew. If I see anything where if I've seen anything in my research where like, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, then I try adding that as well, just to see how it goes. And it actually takes quite a bit of trial and error to see the finished product that I normally show people.
I'd like to build on something you mentioned earlier as we close out this evening, Chef Kristen. You mentioned your partnership with the Filipino Kitchen. Are you able to tell us more about what that involves and, you know, what you are developing with Filipino Kitchen and how we can stay connected with your work?
Yes, absolutely. Please 100% check out, follow Filipino Kitchen on Instagram. Recently, I'm just contributing to the social media posts. I am also, you know, helping with a lot of the background work. I can't elaborate too much just because we do have some projects that we are working on. But if you've seen the reels recently, some of those are actually me cooking, if you check out any of those.
All right. So I think we have hit all of the questions in the chat box. Anyone out there wanting to unmute themselves? We're a small enough group.
Thank you for your help with the butter.
Yeah, did it work out okay?
Yeah, it's looking much better.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad. Anybody else? Yeah, you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's what day is it? It's Sunday. I forgot what day it was. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday before a work week.
Okay, well, can everyone join me in giving their emoji love as you all are in the chat box, but please give a round of applause for Chef Kristen Dominguez for joining us tonight. Woo, do you hear that thunderous applause? Wow, damn, the reverberation. Okay, cool. Well, it is L.E.A.D Filipino's tradition, everyone, that we ask if you are willing and comfortable, if we might take a group photo with our special guests. So at this time, if you're in bed, it's okay. You could do a little virtual background. We know we are joining your Sunday evening with you, but if you feel comfortable taking a photo, we would love to do that now. All right, put yourself in gallery view. So we'll remove the little spotlight so that we could see everyone Hollywood Square style. Mamal, you got to show your, Mamal, you got to turn your, oh, look at Dad has his camera on. Damn, that's a lot of people in that group shot. All right, okay. Okay, so you're gonna have to hold your smiles for a good solid, like 10 seconds, okay? All right, so actually don't smile yet. I'll tell you when to smile. Okay, Not yet. Everyone's like, okay. Mamo, get your camera on. Okay, everyone ready? Okay, smile now. Ready? 1, 2, 3, pon de replay. Cool, cool. Well, thank you again. We are L.E.A.D Filipino. It was our honor and privilege to host all of you tonight in this special workshop with Chef Kristen Dominguez. Please follow us on Instagram at L.E.A.D_Filipino. Later this week, we will be posting the recording from tonight on our YouTube channel, and we'll share that with all of you, in addition to resending the ingredient lists and the recipe lists and all the information that was shared tonight. We appreciate all of you. And that's it. That's all, folks. Thank you.
Yay.
Have a blessed evening. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.